June 14th, 2005, my life took a massive turn. And I've talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it again because it's important. And it's important that folks understand what makes me tick and why I tick this way. Started out with me getting up, getting ready for work, going to work. I worked at a plant in Carlisle, Illinois. It was an injection molding plant. And I was one of the dudes that kind of cleaned up the parts. And when I mean cleaned up the parts, I mean like trimmed up the parts and stuff like that after they got done being molded. I trimmed all the extra mold stuff off and all of that. And I worked with the guy that, and I can't remember his name anymore, but the guy was a trip. He was an absolute blast. And one day, well, this particular day, June 14, 2005, he told me that he was an ordained minister. Now, mind you, I worked with this guy. And this guy was crazier than I was, by far. And I actually got in trouble from my supervisor because I was laughing so hard. And so I asked him, I said, man, dude, you got to tell me the secret. How the hell did you do this? And I always say I was atheist. I don't know that I was atheist. I think I was more agnostic, to be honest. And I'm like, dude, you got to tell me how you did this. And he goes, oh, no problem. You just go online and fill out a form and you're done. It doesn't even cost anything. All right, man. And so I finished out my day of work, went home, and me and my now ex-wife were, and this was actually before we were married, we were staying at an old friend of mine's house, and my computer stuff was down in the basement, right? And so I went downstairs, went down in the basement, sat down on my computer. I actually had several of them. And started poking around online, and I found a place called Universal Ministries. So I went there, I read the web page and stuff like that, and I'm like, well, this is simple enough. No problem. Now, here's the joke. And it was a joke. The joke was, if I can get ordained, anybody can get ordained. And that was the joke behind it. Which, by the way, is true. And so I filled out the form and sent it away. I joined their Yahoo group. Now, I'm not a modest person. I wasn't going to go and I wasn't going to start trouble or anything like that. But I was going to have a lot of damn good laughs, that's for sure. That was my intent. And so, before the night was over, I started getting... It was a Yahoo group, so I started getting emails of conversations from this group. But I also got a reply from Universal Ministries, the head of it, Douglas Hickman. And there was my ordination. And again, June 14, 2005. Been a while. When I got this, I'm not going to say that I didn't I didn't care, I didn't know, and I didn't care. I guess I was more agnostic than anything. And by the way, Mr. Hickman is also the same one that officiated my marriage. And that's a picture of me standing there with Mr. Hickman. And he's a good man. Really, really, really good man. So anyway, I thought, well, that's that. Didn't honestly think a whole lot more other than the laugh I kept having over and over. And starting the very next day, I started seeing the name Jesus pop up like all kinds of places and very odd places. And this was happening at an alarming rate. And as each day passed by, I'd see the name more and more, and even in more odd places. And a week went by, and I'm like, this is too much. It kept on. And at the end of close to 2 weeks, and I mean, I am seeing the name Jesus everywhere. I'm on my way home from work, and we were living in Greenville at the time, and I was coming from Carlisle. I came through Highland, and because this is where my home is. I mean, no matter where I live, Highland's always going to be home. And I was coming through Highland on the way to where I was living in Greenville. And I can tell you where I was at. I was right by the Highland Supply Building, getting ready to turn left onto 6th Street. I was coming off of Jockey, and I was behind a semi. And I can remember being really frustrated because I'm waiting for this damn semi. It was kind of a tight turn, so it would have took them a little bit to navigate. And I'll be damned if that truck didn't make a left-hand turn. And on the side of the entire trailer was the name Jesus. And at that point, I was pissed off. And I mean pissed off. I drove where I was living, went down into the basement, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I did and said. I got down on my knees, and my very first words to God was, "What the fuck do you want with me?" That was my words. And the answer I got is, "I want you to learn." He told me I was but an infant, and he wanted me to learn as much as possible about him. And that when I had questions, that I was to come to him and ask only him. I was not supposed to align myself with any religion or belief, that I was supposed to go to him. I'm telling you, it was life-changing, the whole event. And that is why I don't get involved in too much in Bible discussions. I don't talk about it too much. Because I'll tell you what, I've got a question. And I'm not going to answer this question. I'm just going to tell you the question. However, if you really want to sit down and have a real nitty-gritty conversation with me about the Father, this is the question that I will ask you. And depending on your answer, depends on how deep I will get with you, or even how much time I will give the subject. That question is, did Jesus, the only begotten Son, die on the cross for our sins? Pretty common question for Christians. I'm not going to give you the answer, but that's the question I ask. And depending on the answer that you give me, will depend on how much I will talk to you about it, and how deep I will talk to you about it. And I will say this, on this entire ball of dirt, I've only known two people to answer it. One, personally I know them, and the other is someone from history that I'm not really going to bring into this conversation because there'll be parallels drawn and all that stuff, and there shouldn't be. So that's the reason I am the way I am. I've got many different versions of the word behind me. My go-to is the scriptures. Why? Because that's really about the closest you're going to get. Even though it still carries a lot of the falsehoods, it's going to get you a lot closer than anything King James or after. I can't help that. What I can tell you is this. If you want to know the answers to the questions about the Father, go to him. Don't come to me. Don't go to another human being. Don't go to social media. Don't go to your church or any church. Get on your knees and ask. And if you don't get an answer, do it again. Be persistent. Maybe that is a test. That in and of itself could very well be a test. Well, how serious is this person wanting to talk to me? Be persistent. But have good reason to want to know the answers to your questions. Don't just, are the Chicago Cubs ever going to win a World Series? You know what I mean? Don't go asking questions like that. It's been a long road, and I've fallen off of it a couple of times. The last time was a doozy. One hell of a doozy. And that's why I will not screw up again. Won't do it. That's one reason why the Father wanted me here to do this to begin with. Because I'm going to tell you the truth to the best of my ability. I'm not going to try to slant it in one direction or another direction for this motivation or that motivation. My only motivation is truth and doing it for the Father. That's it. My motivation isn't money, although it helps. Donations help, stuff like that, clearly. But that's not my motivation, and to be honest, we don't ever hardly get anything. It is what it is. That's not why I'm here. I'm here again to do the very best that I can to bring you the truth. Father sent me here to really press on two topics, and I've talked about this several times. Pull shift, because that's something that we're not escaping, and it's knocking on the door. And wood gasification, because I don't care how many preppiest preppers are prepping with all their Gucci crap. I'm not seeing a whole lot of them that are thinking about the long game. Not at all. Every single one of them you ask about fuel, and well, we've got fuel storage and we've got... Yeah? What happens when that runs out? Oh, we've got 1,000-gallon in-ground tank. What happens when that runs out? Do you just call it then? I mean, is everything on horseback then, or what have you? I mean, we're just going to piss away over a century of technology just because, well, we don't want to learn any other way. I don't know how else to look at it, but that's the truth, because that fuel will run out, or it will go bad. There will be a day. And then you still have to be able to perform those tasks that you were using the combustion engine for to be able to sustain life. And when you don't have that capability, things are going to get ugly quick. That's why I say that these preppers don't understand the long game. Because to them, wood gasification sounds too confusing. They would have to learn too many things, and they ain't got time for that. Right? They need to put their time on their armor, they need to put their time on their optics and all of that crap. But they can't tell you 10 years down the line how in the hell they're going to produce enough food to be able to keep any number of people alive. Because I'll say it again, we don't have the animal-drawn equipment, horse, mule, oxen, what have you. We don't have the animal-drawn equipment. We don't have the animals trained for the animal-drawn equipment, and we don't have the people trained for the animal-drawn equipment. And there are going to be a whole lot of people die by the time folks figure it all out. There's a reason why I hammer down on wood gasification, and it's the Father, because He told me to. And it makes sense, but I can't get it to make sense to the YouTuber crew. And I'm not talking about viewers, I'm talking about the so-called content creators that whatever the hell they're doing. So I do take this a bit seriously. I take my relationship with the Father very seriously. I can tell you that Joseph Smith, the first prophet of what you know as the Mormons or the Latter-day Saints, was the real deal. Now, I won't go any further than Joseph Smith, because they've got a real crackpot thing going on right now. And in fact, they pretty much turned their backs on all their original beliefs in order to appease the Christians. Why? Because it became more about the number of people they had and how much money was going in the collection plate. Joseph Smith, however, I will assure you, was the real deal. How do I know that? Because I had much the same conversation with the Father that Mr. Smith did. And I guarantee you that he and I aren't the only ones. And I would be willing to bet that there's roughly 144,000 of us here right now. Can't tell you that they've all took heed to the calling. I have no idea. But I can tell you that there are certainly individuals that are ordained by the Father, whether it be by trickery, tomfoolery, or what have you, as it was in my case, because it was a joke on myself that I can't say backfired. It turned out for my benefit, but it certainly didn't end up the way that I thought it was going to. That's why I kind of shake my head. There was who was the chick? She lives down in North Carolina, and she just changed the name of her channel. It used to be some Arrow Tower or something like that. I can't remember what the name of it is now. Her name's Stephanie, super sweet lady. She'd been involved in building small, like tiny houses for the people that don't have any homes there due to the hurricane and the aftermath that followed. And where was I going with that? Now I don't even remember where I was going with that, and I apologize. It'll probably pop back up in my head. But I'm telling you, there are people out there that are oh, yeah, now I remember. See, I told you. In the chat of one of her live videos, there was some dude going on and on and on about him being ordained and his college degree and all that. And I simply said, man does not ordain man. God ordains man. And he's like, you got to have a college degree and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you just really are not listening to what I'm saying. Yeah, the story is very interesting, Fire Marshal Bill. Read the book of Enoch. Read all of the Apocrypha. And you can figure it out. There's enough information there to figure it out. And I will just say that that's one of the things Christians were heavily lied to about. So, and there's reasons why they were lied to about. It's all about power and control over knowledge, over information. It's all about that. And these are some very sick, twisted individuals at this. And I try to remind people that the two largest religious organizations on the planet are the two that were responsible for the quote-unquote death of Jesus Christ, right? You've got Rome, that's the Catholics, if you hadn't figured that out, and you've got the Jews. And those are the two largest religious organizations on the planet. They run the show. The story is theirs that has been handed down, and very, very few people question it, and people should question it a lot more. So, but again, this is something that is between each and every one of us and the Father directly, aside from our own research. But it's very interesting what you find out about the whole death and resurrection story, and interesting stuff. He was crucified. He was absolutely crucified. But that doesn't mean, and didn't mean, nailed to a cross. That was an added definition, if you will. Crucified meant crucified. He was made fun of. He was picked on. He was beat on. He was cursed at. He was crucified before the meaning was changed to nailed to a cross. So, there's a lot of changes like that. Talk about Jesus meeting us in the clouds. Okay? Clouds, in that sense, is not white puffy things in the sky. Clouds are groups of people. He will meet us in the groups of people. Why doesn't anybody tell you this stuff? Well, because knowledge is power, and they want it all for themselves. Read the Apocrypha, and you'll learn a whole lot. And I'll even go a little further than that. There is one particular area of whatever you want to call it, but there is one particular area to where I'm currently learning more and more, and I have found it a trusted source. I think he's pretty trusted. His information, I've checked quite a bit of it, and it's pretty solid. There's a guy that talks about the Anunnaki, and let me find his channel, the name of it, and this guy, he's on target with a lot. And that's an important part of the story that you need to know. If you truly want to know what all went down, that's an important part. Hang on. I just watched a video just recently. I thought the thumbnail would pop up and poke me in the eye. Hang on. All I got to do is type a word in the search and it'll pop right up. There we go. Anunnaki Ancient Mystery. I'll even give you guys a link to it. There you be. Anunnaki Ancient Mystery. And it's important stuff. If you want to know what happened, what went down, you got to know that story too. You got to know that side of it. And you're not done then. There's several sides to the story, and it's important to know as many of them as you can. Make sure to follow the Hopi side of the story, the Mayan side of the story, the Egyptian side of the story. They're all important. They're all important. And if you want a chance at understanding the whole truth, in a way that we can get here on earth just without talking to God directly. It's understanding these different belief systems. And what I've always told people, and I've said this for over a decade, think of it as a Google map and layer every different belief system on top of one another and see what lines up and what doesn't. You'll be amazed at how much that lines up. But where you see something that differs, start digging. Start digging. I can tell you that there's rituals and beliefs that we're supposed to take and really hold on to from all of the different belief systems. For instance, the Christian, I shouldn't say Christian, the I'll try it again. The Jewish faith, Hanukkah. That is what we're supposed to get from that. We're supposed to get light. How important it is to have enough light from that. It was God's first command, let there be light. It's extremely important. Without light, we're done. We're done. If you can't see to work, if you can't see to cook, if you can't see to do anything, you're done. And if you're in nothing but darkness, how are you going to grow food? But it ain't about that, and you're not going to be in darkness forever. But you have to be prepared for when you are. And you damn well have to have enough oil to make it through that time period. It's a lot of interesting stuff. And I have put a long time into this, since 2005. And it's been another one of those exponential things. I started out just dipping my toes in the water till I wound up underwater. I don't talk about faith a lot. And the reason I don't is because a lot of the things that I have learned would seem very radical to a lot of people. And that's understandable. That's fine. I don't want to force my knowledge or my belief on anyone. But I don't want my knowledge or belief distorted either. And I won't allow it to be. When I've got questions, I go to the Father. Or I go to my research. I don't go to man. Not at all. I was literally commanded not to. And that's a command I haven't broken yet, and I'm not gonna. That's an important one. That is one that I can say helps me verify that Mr. Smith, Joseph Smith, was the real deal.